My marriage has been on the brink of divorce multiple times, and despite having a multi-million-dollar business and being successful in providing, my relationship has almost fallen apart. Constant arguments at each other's throats, no sex or intimacy, a lack of appreciation and respect on both sides. It was a fucking disaster. Now, I've found that there are 7 things I've done with my wife, Rosie, that have allowed me to save my marriage and have a marriage full of intimacy, love, respect, appreciation, and connection. These are 7 simple steps that every single marriage needs to not just survive, but to thrive. So if your marriage is on the brink of divorce, or if you're just in a lifeless, sexless marriage, these 7 steps will help you. They've helped thousands of men, and I hope they add value to your life. If you don't know who I am, my name's Toni Versic, and I've helped over 5,000 men fix their marriages, reconnect with their children, and find work-life balance. The first thing that's kept Rosie and I together is that we've been through some really dark times, and I believe that every single relationship needs that. There was one instance where I was drinking every single night to deal with the pressure and stress of providing. I'm a successful guy, I run a business, I'm trying to put food on the table for my family, but I wasn't able to deal with that pressure and stress. So what I do every single night is sedate with alcohol or drugs. One night, I was drinking just like every other night, and about 7 or 8 whiskeys deep, Rosie and I got into an argument about something stupid. It was always something stupid. Instead of dealing with that argument, I did what most men do. I swept it under the rug and I pushed it away. The way I did that was I ran to my balcony and I jumped off the balcony. Now, it was only 2 stories and I was limp from the whiskey dick. I was limp from the alcohol, so nothing broke. I didn't get injured. And I remember the next day, my wife looking at me with pity and disgust. And in that moment, I asked myself, what's the point of this? Like, what's the point of having this amazing person if I'm gonna fucking destroy our marriage? We've been through some really dark times, and that's a good thing. You wanna have dark times in your relationship. There are gonna be things that come up, massive fights, massive disagreements, having children, financial challenges, stresses. That's not a negative thing. If you currently have any negative issues, dark times in your relationship, if you had them in the past, those are positive things. They're opportunities to learn and grow together. It's very unlikely that you find the right person, you grow with the right person. So for Rosie and I, having these dark times and dark moments has helped so much. There was another time where in the business, we almost went bankrupt. And I remember saying to my wife, like, I don't know if we can do this anymore. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to provide. And that felt fucking weak for me as a man. I felt like a piece of shit. And I had this opportunity to invest in a mentor to help me turn things around. It was the last money we had. I came to my wife and I was dark, I was depressed. And I said to her, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And she said, if you need to do it, do what's right for this family. So if you've been through dark times, that's the first thing that's really helped me save my marriage, even though it was negative. However, we used the following steps I'm about to share with you. Step number 2 was we argued a lot. We argued so much in our marriage. We argued about money, we argued about time, we argued about our daughter, we argued about our traumas and problems. Rosie has been cheated on in her previous relationship. She was with that guy for years, and that guy lied to her about the cheating. She has this traumatic instance where she was outside the house while the girl he was cheating on her with was inside the house, and that woman called her a whore or something like that. And that stuck with Rosie into our relationship. When I used to look in the direction of another woman, she'd get angry at me and think I wanted to fuck her, which is obviously not true. If you're a guy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You look at a woman, that woman goes away. Your wife a few hours later says, I saw the way you looked at her, and you have no idea who she's talking about. We argued so much, and that's a good thing because arguments create collision, and collision creates connection. Now, that collision can be a fucking car accident, but what you're really doing when you argue is you're sharing 2 opposing points of view. That's a positive thing. For Rosie and I, she had her beliefs from her childhood, the way she was raised, her stories, her traumas, and I had my beliefs, how I think a child should be raised, my traumas, my beliefs. So we had to come together and collide so that we can come apart again and connect at a deeper level. We argued a lot for the first 5 years. We used to yell at each other, get upset at each other. I remember I'd leave the house for hours at a time, just sitting in my car or sitting on the beach, overthinking how angry I was at her. And that was a very positive thing. You want to have dark times and you want to have arguments because then you work through them. By definition, if you have opposing worldviews and you don't talk about them, it means they get swept under the rug and they'll get worse and worse and worse. Arguments have been very valuable for us, and now we haven't had one in the last year or 2. We have disagreements, but we never argue, we never raise our voices. It's a very positive experience. This leads to the third thing that saved my marriage. Arguments saved my marriage. They absolutely did, so did dark times. But the third thing is having difficult conversations. There was a moment in our relationship where I put on the fridge a printout, and this printout blew my fucking mind. It read, hard conversations, easy life. Easy conversations, hard life. Hard conversations, easy life, easy conversations, hard life. And after coaching thousands of men, I've seen this happen. I was upset at her for not giving me sex. I was upset at her for not appreciating me. She was upset at me for not supporting her. She was upset at me for not understanding her. And instead of coming together and having a difficult conversation that's gonna cause an argument, that's gonna cause disconnection and then collision and then connection, instead of going through that dark space, we'd ignore these things. Once I found that quote, I put it on the fridge and Rosie said to me, I don't get it. And after a year of being on the fridge, we started to understand it. We started to realize that when we were upset at each other or triggered by each other, the best thing we could do is bring it up as quickly as possible. An argument happens when you let it build up. But if I was upset at her, I would calmly and patiently tell her what I was upset about and she would do the same for me. And this took time and space. You're not gonna be good at this the first time you do it. If you go to the gym and put 200 kilos, 440 pounds on the bar, you're not going to be able to lift it. But as you build that skill set of squatting, you get better. So we built the skill set of having difficult conversations we didn't want to have, conversations about our fears and uncertainties. And as we went through these dark times and these arguments and hard conversations, we started to deeply understand each other and connect on a much more intimate level. Hard conversations, easy life, easy conversations, hard life. Where in your life are you avoiding the hard conversations? And how is that making your life way worse? The more you have, the better, because each conversation, each argument, each dark time, you work through it so that you don't have the same argument and hard conversation again. That's the goal here. This led to the fourth thing, which helped me immensely, which was giving each other feedback and growing together. Once we started to resolve the arguments and have more hard conversations and overcome each dark time in our relationship, that's when we began to understand the best thing we could do for each other is to realize that we weren't where we needed to be. I wasn't the man she deserved. I wasn't consistent. I wasn't happy. I wasn't positive. I wasn't confident. I wasn't the best man I could be. And she had a lot of insecurities and fears and doubts. She wasn't as supportive as she knew she could be. So we started to realize on both sides, where can we grow together? A great relationship is where you grow together. If you think about train tracks, if those train tracks diverge, the train derails. It's the same in our intimate relationship with our partner or our loved ones. You've got to be on the same train tracks, and if one of you outgrows the other, everything can collapse. So what I started doing was I started investing in mentors and coaches. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on systems, coaches, mentors, courses for my business. I started investing in myself as well. What I started to realize though was I was outgrowing my wife. I was doing a lot of personal development and she wasn't growing at all. So we had a conversation about that and I invested in one of my coaches for her. She's now been working with that woman for the last 3 years. I've been working with her for 4 years. And now she's got someone to talk to, someone to empower her, and magic began to happen. I started growing as a man. I started being more patient, more calm, more understanding. I had a lot of judgment. I was very judgmental towards my wife. I was very negative. I would put her down. I didn't realize I was fucking doing it. I was super judgmental towards her, but it was because I was judgmental to myself. Relationships are a mirror. Everything you get triggered about your partner at, you're actually triggered about yourself at. So I started growing, and then Rosie started growing. She started being more organized. That was one of my complaints. She became more reliable. She became more intimate. She started giving me what I wanted. And then as we were growing together, we created this conversation, a hard conversation, where we're allowed to give each other feedback. So if Rosie's upset at me, she has permission because we've had this conversation. I've said, please pull me up on it. If I'm stressed, if I'm triggered, if I'm angry, if I'm too assertive, too strong in the relationship, she'll pull me up on it. She'll literally say, hey, you're acting this way again. Do you realize you're doing it? And I'll say to her, hey, you're doing this thing again. Do you realize you're doing it? Just the other week, this tool will help you so much. Rosie was really stressed. She's about to have another child. We have a 3-year-old. I haven't been as present as I could be. So Rosie's stressed out as fuck. And my response to that is often, are you okay? And it's a very judgmental response. One thing I realized was I can say to my wife, hey, I know you're upset. Do you realize how you're showing up right now? And I shared that with her. I said, would it be better if I communicated with that like that with you? And her response was, that'd be way better because then I don't feel judged. So see how we're giving each other feedback? That's helped me immensely in this relationship. Rosie and I are pulling each other up on our inadequacies. We're not nagging each other. We're not attacking each other. We're holding each other accountable to becoming the best versions of ourselves. Where in your relationship is this not happening? Where are you tit for tat, nagging each other? And what would it look like if you were able to have enough hard conversations and enough collision arguments and enough dark times to learn and grow from them so you can give each other feedback and support each other in becoming the best husband and wife you can be, which leads into also being a better father and a better mother. If my daughter is seeing us calmly and patiently work through difficult things, not yell at each other, give each other feedback, pull each other up on our bullshit, now my daughter's learning healthy relationships. For her, marriage or for her partner in the future. This shit is so important and no one talks about it. Now, part of this as well leads to the fifth step, which is never being hypercritical or judgmental in the relationship. As I mentioned just before, I was a very judgmental person. If Rosie said she was gonna do something and then didn't follow through, I'd get angry and triggered. I would judge her. If she didn't have the confidence, because my wife has not been that confident, to have a difficult conversation with a family member or do something that I would consider easy, then I would judge her. And I would be critical of her flaws and point them out, which meant in our relationship, she felt like she wasn't enough. She felt like she wasn't good enough. She felt like she could never meet my standards or needs. Now, if you're this type of guy, which most successful men are, we're control freaks, we're hypercritical, we expect the world from our employees and our team, and we expect the world from our loved ones as well, then that person is constantly feeling judged by us. Now, one of the most powerful tools that helped me turn this around was to realize that love is the absence of judgment. I get to accept my partner and her flaws. I get to accept that she's not perfect. I get to accept that she doesn't meet all of my needs. I get to accept that there are areas where I would do things differently. And this was a massive game changer in my relationship. I realized that I could run a business and be successful and make money and expect my team to perform because I'm paying them without having the same expectations from my wife. And this doesn't mean you don't expect your partner to be better. It doesn't mean you don't expect your partner to meet your needs. But all misery comes from unmet expectations. If we're able to have difficult conversations, give each other feedback, explain what the needs are, what does she need in terms of support and love and appreciation? What do I need in terms of sex and intimacy and physical touch and respect? And we're able to come together and not be hypercritical, be understanding and accepting of each other's flaws, then we can grow through those flaws together. And there are gonna be some things that don't go away. But when you remove the judgment and you give support and understanding and appreciation, and you support that person in growing, they give you more of what you want. As soon as I stopped judging Rosie for all the shit she wasn't doing, she was now free to do it without that pressure. It's so funny, I put the pressure on my team in business, I was putting the same pressure on my life. So not being hypercritical and removing judgment and turning judgment into understanding and patience in my relationship was a massive fucking game changer. And I'll be honest, I struggle with that. I struggle with that because I am a high performing guy, but I can't bring those high performing habits into my marriage. I get to be patient with it. I get to understand my wife and support her. Where in your relationship are you judging your partner? Where are you being hypercritical? Or is your wife being hypercritical of you? And how could you have hard conversations that create dark times, that create potentially even an argument, so you can work through that, give each other feedback, so that hypercritical relationship ends and it becomes a relationship of support and appreciation and understanding. And then once you've removed that judgment, the next step is step 6, which is to let each other be ourselves. It's so interesting, like as a business owner or a high performer, if you're a provider for your family, you would know that there are masks that you wear. So there's the mask that I wear in business. In business, no matter how fucking stressful it is, no matter the fact that we have 300-400 grand a month of expenses, there's this pressure and stress, and I get to show up for my team. There's days where I don't want to do it. There's days where I feel like throwing in the towel. There's days where I'm like, this is way too fucking hard. I can't rely on anyone. This is bullshit. Fuck this. But I get to show up for my team with a smile, and I get to lead my team. Now at home, I can now be myself and I can be honest with my wife, which I'm not going to tell my team and say, you know what? Like today was fucking hard. Today was difficult. And because we grow together, we're not hypercritical. We have that understanding. We have difficult conversations. She doesn't think I'm a pussy for sharing that. She appreciates that I'm helping her understand what I'm going through. As men, we're not able to be ourselves. We're constantly wearing a mask, weight of the world on our shoulders, under constant pressure and stress. Nothing's ever enough. There's always more problems, more challenges, and we're not able to share that with our partner. We're not able to be vulnerable. We feel weak if we do that. And then when we do share it, it's often in the form of anger or frustration or built up emotions. Rosie and I's relationship drastically changed when I learned how to be vulnerable, but also assertive and certain. Vulnerable, but also assertive and certain. It was a rough day, and this is what I'm gonna do about it. Not being a little bitch and complaining, being myself, taking off that mask, being honest about how hard it is, being honest about the struggles, and then telling her what I'm gonna do about it. She's allowed to be herself and quirky and funny. Like I do this thing called the windmill when I'm naked, right? Sometimes, I haven't done it in years, but I'll jump around, I'll get my thingy windmilling, right? That's me being myself. I'm being silly, I'm being quirky. There are moments in our relationship where we'll literally just be the two of us, our daughter's being looked after, and we'll be silent for like 2 hours because we know each other so well. In a relationship, you've got to let each other be themselves. It's so funny. We'll get into a relationship with someone, we know who they are, we get to know them a bit more over 6 to 12 months, we know who they are, and then 10 years later, we resent them for who they are. We judge them for who they are. We don't want to let them be themselves. Imagine if there was a relationship like that for you. That would destroy you. So letting each other be yourselves in the relationship is so important, and it's helped Rosie and I immensely. And that ties into the 7th point. There's much more to teach here. Communicating better, understanding each other, love meetings. But the 7th point is really becoming best friends with your partner. Like, my wife is my best friend. She's my best friend. I've got friends that I see. I've got people I care about, people who run businesses, people I understand. But I truly believe for a relationship to last the test of time, in sickness and in health, till death do us part, you've got to be best friends with your partner. And there's a very high likelihood you're listening to this right now and you're not best friends with your partner. You feel like roommates instead of soulmates. You feel like two ships passing in the night. You don't feel appreciated or respected by your partner. She doesn't feel understood or supported by you. There's a very high chance of that. Now think about what a best friend does. A best friend is someone you can rely on. A best friend is somebody that you can turn to in your darkest moments. A best friend will call you out on your shit. A real friend will pull you up on your bullshit. They won't let you drop your standards. A best friend will argue with you. They'll get triggered at you. And despite all of these challenges and problems, despite them pulling you up on shit, despite collision, despite dark times, they'll always be by your side. And I truly believe my wife is my best friend. I'm not embarrassed to say that. That's fucking phenomenal to me. She's someone I can talk to. She's someone I can rely on. She's someone I can trust. She's someone who's got my back no matter what. And she's also someone I can have sex with, which is fucking phenomenal. It's the perfect combination. I love spending time with her. I can't wait to spend time with her after a long day. Whereas there were moments in my life where I'd literally be sitting in the car outside of the house, not wanting to come home. And this is the story for so many men. We don't feel that connection. We don't feel like that person's our soulmate. We feel more comfortable in our business. We feel more comfortable with other people than we do with our partner. Home doesn't feel like home. It doesn't feel safe. And when we are home, we're not on the same page. We're not present. We're not really there. What would your life look like if you made your wife your best friend? Now that's impossible to do if you're constantly busy and stressed and you're not going through the steps I just shared. How do you make your wife your best friend? How do you have intimacy and sex and that spark? How do you have appreciation and respect and understanding? How do you have that love and connection you deserve? Well, step 1, you've got to go through dark times. They're positive times. They're dark, but you get to learn and grow from them together. You get to have arguments, and that's okay. That's a good thing, but only if you grow from the arguments. If you have the same argument over and over again, it means you need to sit down and have hard conversations. You have to have the difficult conversations about what's not working and how you both feel. And that's gonna trigger you, and it's gonna make you upset, and it might cause yelling or arguing, and it might cause dark times. But you've got to resolve the issues. You'd never not resolve an issue in your business. You fix it. Have the hard conversations. Have a culture of feedback where you can tell each other where you're dropping the ball, pull each other up on things, and grow together. Invest in you, invest in her, invest in each other. Go to couples retreats, get coaches, sign up to the Empowered Man program. This is literally what we do. We have date night calls for our clients. Don't be hypocritical. Remove judgment from the relationship and have a culture in your relationship of understanding, of patience, of love, getting to know each other and letting you be yourselves. Let you be yourself, let her be yourself, and become best friends. This is the formula that's changed my marriage. It's allowed me to have so much connection with Rosie after 8 years, while also being a father, while also looking after my health, while also building a $5 million business, while also loving life. And you can have this too if you follow these steps, but it's not easy. And that's exactly why the Empowered Man exists. So if you want this, if you want your wife to be your best friend again, you want more connection and love, you want to destroy the arguments and turn it into feedback and make hard conversations easy, and get through dark times and be winning in your marriage, winning in your business, winning in every area of your life, that's exactly what we do. So if you click the first link down below, you'll be able to book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. And on that session, we'll literally show you how you can fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance in 30 days or less. We'll build out the plan for you for free. I hope you got value from this. If you did, give it 5 stars or a thumbs up. Go to the link down below, book a coaching session with my team, get your custom roadmap, and make your wife your best friend again.